kind of like I think of us now as the grandmothers of Cat 6, Emil. I know, neither am I. But we're the senior members. How's that? Is that better? Our kids are all in their 30s. So, and we were talking before today started, and most of you have young children. And when I first, it's funny, Jordan Mueller was about 10 miles from me. And when my son was diagnosed, he's 39 now, he was the oldest child diagnosed. And I called Jordan, because he was in my neighborhood, and I said, what do I need to know? He says, you need to know that a lot of parents of young children are going to call you, and they want to know what your adult's child is like. And we've all felt the same way. We kind of went into radio silence, because when your kids are young, you don't want to have too many expectations for their future. And our experiences are all very different, with different abilities. Right, Chloe?
Yeah.
That's Jordan's her dad. Okay, that's all right. But, okay, I'm going to have to talk now, okay? Just
a good manner.
okay. So we didn't talk about it, but the one thing we wanted to tell you was the world that your children are entering today is such a better world than our kids entered when they were young. Those possibilities weren't there. I mean, people were, when my son was first born, there were still doctors giving us advice about you'd want to put your child in a home or an institution. Okay, so things have changed a whole lot since then. I was a retired special ed teacher. I work now with the providers of organizations in the state of Maryland. I interviewed a young man who's 60, not young, who's still living with his 80-year-old mother, and going through his file, it said that when he was in elementary school, they had the perfect program for him, but it had a waiting list because it was full. Well, that will never happen to you, because the law has changed for that. You have ideas, so it is a much better world. But anyway, we're going to talk. We put a thing out on Facebook a while back and asked, what did you want to know? So some of these things we're telling you were things they told us you wanted to know, and then there were some things we thought you should know. So my name's Sue Hartung. My son Warren is 39. When he was diagnosed, he was the oldest child with Cat 6 in the world, and that is no longer true. He also has a sister who has autism. I'll tell this story quick. Well, it doesn't matter. They're very different. All right, so the one thing let's see, get this right. All right, so we're posting up, the screen is up there, which is different than what's in front of me, so I'm going to have to look that way, okay? One thing we want you to know is that you should learn about the state that you live in. What services they have, what are good, what aren't. I did not know about this website until I was preparing this presentation. And because I see you taking a picture of it, let me tell you that this whole presentation will be available on the Cat 6 YouTube channel and the website when we're done. Okay, so you'll get all these links and you'll get everything in it. NORD has a report card that they do for every state. It covers things like Medicaid, prenatal health. I have a list here. Give me a second. Put my glasses on. Protecting. Chloe is enjoying telling me how old I am all day long, but that's fine. Right. Newborn screening, protecting patients in state Medicaid programs, step therapy, telehealth. It rates your state in every area. In the state of Maryland, where I live, we have from A's to C's. So it's a good way of finding out where your state is and what you need to work on. Chloe, you need to be quiet. Speaking for me. Thank you. All right, so get the complicated part. I would encourage you all to sign up for the NORD newsletter. You probably have seen postings that I have put up on the Facebook page that says, please write your senators and congressmen and ask them to support these bills that came from NORD. I have on there the link that will tell you the representatives in your states and your senators. And when NORD asks you to support something, they'll usually give you the verbiage that you can just copy and paste in an email, hit the right links, and it goes right to them. We've already had some success this year with some of you guys writing, so I really appreciate that. The things they're working on right now, there are 4 bills actually. There's the RARE Act, which gives incentives to researchers and developmental providers, and the Orphan Drug Act to keep doing things for rare diseases, researching. There's the Creative Hope reauthorization, which is reauthorization by an existing bill that I think has to be passed by September, and rewards companies for developing much-needed programs for people with rare diseases. They're Accelerating Kids Act, which is, you know how hard it is sometimes to find knowledgeable doctors about your issue. I have been having a discussion, say nicely, with Children's Hospital in DC, because they do not want my son's neurologist, who has followed him since he was 9, to continue to see him because he's not a child anymore. But I'll tell you, there's not another neurologist in the metropolitan Washington area that knows anything about Cat6 and seizures. So this is a bill that would help that, and there's also a Telehealth Modernization Act, so that the things, the changes that Medicare made to allow you to use telehealth during COVID can remain in place. So that's what they're working on, important stuff, which has big, broad recommendations for us. But NORD does not support everything. Cat6 was approached directly about the Promising Pathways Act. And when I did some research on it, because Emil wrote me, he said, do we want to endorse this? And NORD said, no, we don't want to do it because it would guarantee new medications to be approved for 8 years. But after 8 years, if there wasn't documented progress, it would no longer be available. So you might have found the perfect medication for your child, and it would be gone. You wouldn't be able to get it. So they are very careful about how they do that. The second thing that I want to talk about is learning about the waiver programs, and these are things in your state, and something called Can Families Be Paid Staff? Beth got this when Sam was 10. Sue and I never got it. I thought it was just what we had to do, right? Sue as parents, we just thought it was a labor of love. But some things have changed. Every state has some sort of program to help you get into a waiver that can provide you some supports for your child who has a disability. It's called the Katie Beckett waiver in some states.
And what that was, do you guys all know what that is? So just briefly, it disregards parents' income and provides Medicaid for your disabled child in order to keep the child at home and to supplement your medical insurance.
In Maryland, it's a little different. There's just a family supports waiver, which has nothing to do with your income or the child's income. It's just there are some services you might be eligible for. On this, this came from Amy Young, who was our other member who's not here. Our family is able to use Medicaid for prescriptions, doctor's appointments, outpatient therapies, feeding, diapers, a CPAP machine, money for babysitting, and 200 hours of respite a year. You have to apply, it's not guaranteed, but it is available. And the link on this page where it says Kids Waiver Program, and I don't have internet on this, so I'm not pulling it up, but it will tell you state by state what programs are available in your state. So I would definitely encourage you to check it out. Now, the other part of that, this really grew popular during COVID. Traditional providers of services for individuals with disabilities were not taking in new individuals. COVID was too big a problem. And families could not hire people to come into their home because of COVID. So there was something came up called self-directed services in Maryland. It says a different name in different states. But it basically says that families can be paid to be the providers of services for their children. It doesn't mean you're paid to be a babysitter. You still need to have a plan. You have to say what you're doing with that. It doesn't have to be a family. It could be a family member. It could be somebody that you hire. And for some individuals who, once they're 18 or 21, who have the ability to make their own decisions, they can make their own decisions for what they want. So it's how to implement a service delivery model. It doesn't have to be through a traditional provider. And again, this self-directed services link at the top will tell you state by state what's available in your state. I will tell you there are families who are really able to change their whole lifestyle by utilizing this service. Okay, so there's a paid parent caregiver list. I'm sorry, that's at the bottom of the next slide. It's there at the bottom, but it's all on there. If I knew then, Sue and I, what we know now, we would have been paid parent caregivers for our kids. Other issues that NORD is watching is deductibility of the ABLE accounts, and Beth will talk about those in a minute. Removing caps on therapy for private insurers. Sometimes there are caps for speech or PT. Expanding wait lists for waiver programs. In Maryland, we have an autism waiver. There's only a few states that have that. We have a 9-year waiting list. And increasing the rates to what they call direct service providers. These will be the individuals that work directly with your child and supporting them. We refer to them as DSPs. In Maine, the rate always lags behind minimum wage. All right, so that's kind of what I wanted to make sure you knew, and some of the things you asked about. Sue is going to talk about medical and education.
Sorry. Oh, that's distracting me. Chloe.
You have to wait 9 years, 9-year waiting.
Okay, medical.
Here.
The best thing that I can advise is that you see literally every medical profession there is, because chances are there's going to be something that's tied into Cat 6A or Cat 6B. We started out with cardiology at age 4, finding out that my daughter had an ASD. Had no clue because pediatrician had not done. So with those kinds of things, we pursued lots of other medical practices, and I totally recommend it. Our second one was the GI doctor, obviously for constipation and weight gain. Weight has always been a problem all of her life. She's now 37, sitting right here. And still skinny, yes, the weight is still an issue. But the GI doc's been able to get us, because we only being diagnosed when she was 28. There was no Dr. Kelly, there was no cocktail, there was nothing of that sort. And we did the, the Miralax, the mineral oil, the other stuff that was never completely productive until we got connected with a really good GI doc and got the right medications. But she was also able to diagnose the other things that went with the hypotonia and the Cat 6A, which was abdominal migraines, malabsorption. She's chronically anemia because of malabsorption. So GI doc is really important to have on board. Vision. She wears glasses now. She started glasses at age 6. But the first thing that we got diagnosed was my daughter walked around for the first 4 years of her life with her head tilted. Well, she had hypotonia, and we thought it was weak neck muscle. Saw an orthopedic who said, well, she's got torticollis because her head is always this way. So she had a short neck muscle. Well, after we did therapy and brought her head straight up into alignment, we discovered she had strabismus. When she would tilt her head, she could bring her eyes into normal vision and couldn't. Long story short, we ended up with 4 surgeries between the 2 eyes to finally get. Now when she gets sick and her muscles are even weaker and her head tilts, her eyes go out of primary gaze. But in primary gaze, she's got perfect vision. She's also been able to have other things diagnosed that were wrong with her eyes that only an ophthalmologist can diagnose. An optometrist cannot. They'll only give you a prescription for glasses, but anything beyond that needs an ophthalmologist. Recurrent infections, bring an immunologist into it. For us, the anemia brought a hematologist into it. Pulmonologist on board because most of our infections were lung infections. It says that Cat 6B is more prone to thyroid and kidney issues. Well, I'm here to tell you my kid's got Cat 6A and has both of those issues. So getting a nephrologist on board to check those things out is important. We did a sleep study very young and found out that she had, you didn't, well, Kristen did. Obstructive sleep apnea. She needed a BiPAP machine because with the Cat 6, her brain was forgetting to tell her body to breathe, and she would pause breathing. Also unknown to us was her heart was pausing at the same time that she would stop breathing. Separate issues, but the BiPAP has been the answer for us, and she started at age 6 and is still on it. Sleep study, MRIs, important, check that out. I mean, ours didn't tell us anything, but we had to do it to make sure. We have a neurologist on board and have had since she was an infant. And that's about the extent of the medical piece. The other part that
Just, there's a list on the website or in the handbook of possible problems, and I think that's what this list comes from. So you need to rule these things out, but every person doesn't have all these things. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not as grim as it sounds.
And that handbook is real. I put out pages 5 and 6 in the handbook, which are the characteristics of cats. I take it to every doctor, every teacher I see, because nobody knows what cats is. But when I hand them that, they really like it.
Is there a basic, like you said, like page 5 and 6, is there a collaborative, like with the things that maybe the PT, OT, is there like a booklet that we could provide for our providers because it's so hard? Is that just the whole handbook?
Yes.
Okay.
And you could just either email it to them or just print out certain pages.
Yeah, I was trying to think of, was there like a cheat sheet? Because I feel like when you give them the, like a stack, they...
Go through pages 5 and 6. Those are the ones I do. And you can put pages.
Okay, the next piece is educational advocacy. Starting with infants, there's infant programs, preschool programs, everything through school through 12th grade, and there are post-senior programs for 4 years after high school. Chloe. And the most important thing that I can say about education and advocacy is push, push, push. Don't ever give up. If you need to hire an advocate or you need to get an advocate, there are free advocates across the country. There are special needs attorneys that will gladly take on cases. But when you have your first meeting with the public school system, at least, which is what I'm retired from, I'm a retired resource specialist, and I also spent 10 years in a special day class, which is a self-contained special education class, is go into your first meeting, at whatever level it's at, infant, toddler, elementary school, and smile, and listen to everything they have to say, and be the nice parent, and then don't sign. Don't sign anything at that first meeting. You're going to sign saying you attended, but don't sign saying you approved. Go home and read it, process it, contact an advocate, an attorney, whatever. But whatever they're going to offer you, I guarantee there's more beyond that. So if you say, I agree to this, but I want this, you go back to another meeting and you push for that. And if they still won't give it, that's when you really need the advocate to come in. And I have to tell you, being in public education for almost 40 years, for 40 years, nothing scared me more than having an advocate show up to one of my IEP meetings. I assume right off the bat, I've done something wrong. And they're there just to push harder. And it's what you need. With our kids and a lot of the things being very subtle, you need to push. And don't ever stop.
I don't want to take too much time on this. This is planned for the future, and I was thinking that the future would probably be really in two parts. One is when your child turns 18, they're legally an adult, and they can refuse medication, they can refuse to go to the doctor, they can do whatever they want in the eyes of the law. So you need to think about that and make sure that you have a plan for guardianship if they need it, or not. But think about that, because 18 is a big age in our world. And then think long-term about the future as you age, because I'm aging, and think about that. And what do you want for your child? You need to plan financially, housing, all that stuff. Think about it, but don't stress over it, because things are going to change between now and then. They sure have changed in our world. I had a lot of ideas about how things might work out, but for instance, just COVID changed everything. And Sam, my son Sam here, he lives at home with us. I'm his paid caregiver. He has 40 hours a week of outside help that he's qualified for. He doesn't get that much because it's very difficult to find helpers. But and for now, that's good, but we're looking, 10 years from now, I'll be 80 and my husband will be 85, so we need to think about that. And
You might be 86.
you might be. Okay. So,
She can walk because her hip thing.
just wait a minute. Okay, so guardianship is coming right up. Even if you have a baby, guardianship is something to think about, because by age 18, you need to be doing something about that. And there are other things that are really important for you to know about are Medicare and Medicaid, because they're going to eventually be the medical insurance. Social Security, you have to apply for that. You have to know all the code words to get qualified, but it's possible. And you have to know that your child shouldn't have assets over $2,000, because if they do, Social Security will cut it off, stop paying, and they'll take the money back.
And they'll go back 3 years, so by the
Yeah,
time they're 15,
yeah.
no more than $2,000 in assets.
But there is a good part of that, and that is in the United States. I know not everyone's from there. We now have such a thing as an ABLE account, which is an account that can be well over I can't remember like 180,000 altogether, and 16,000 per year that you can put into that. It needs to be spent for the good of the individual to enhance their life, but that is a huge improvement over the way things were not long ago. And the other thing to think about is, if you were to be, I always think, what if I'm killed in a car crash tomorrow? What's my plan? Sam's two older sisters are, they'll be his, right now my husband and I are his guardians, but our intent is that they will share guardianship, and they're on board with that. But beyond that, they'd be lost, because they don't even know his medication regimen like that now. And there's a lot to think about. So think about writing a letter that outlines your intents. And the rest of this stuff, we all know almost everything about it, and we're happy to help you down the road. If you have questions, you call, send us a message or whatever, and we'll help.
And in fact, today we just met a special ed attorney whose daughter is 15 and was just diagnosed, and she's willing to help us out. Thank you. With getting on board with the Advocacy Committee. So hopefully we'll have even more resources for you. But our emails are on everywhere. You can email us anytime. What's not on here is there is a page at the end of the presentation which has all the links that are in this presentation on one slide, which should be really helpful to you. The last thing that people asked about was siblings. And we have some really nice stories in here about siblings, and I'm sure most of you with your siblings have really good relationships and wonderful things. I will tell you my one story when we have two other boys beyond my Cat 6 autistic child. When he was about 8, I said, get in the car, we're all going to go for ice cream. And he gave me that look. And I said, what's up? He said, I hate ice cream and I hate those We Sing songs tapes you play for my brother and sister. So then we started planning one vacation a year just with the boys. And so we tried to create that time just for them. The ARCs runs things called SIP shops. It's a great, find the ARC in your community. It gives them a chance to talk to other siblings who have the same issue. Best Buddies is something they can do in high school. I reprinted some things here that came from this website with just some suggestions, things to do at different stages in the life. Mostly they are stories of triumphs. It's a wonderful experience for them. But it's not all wonderful, and they'll be reluctant to come to you when they're not happy or when there's an issue. So you gotta kind of set the stage. And the last thing people asked for was more meetups. And I will tell you this, Natasha and Emil and the board work so hard to plan this conference every year. And the advocacy, we're always putting out webinars. I really think it'd be great if you guys got together more often, but you guys are going to have to plan it, okay? Find out who's in your state. They just put the map out the other day of where people were and things. I think it's a great opportunity. Your catwalks are another one. Any questions?